Okay,
and
perfect.
and I think we need to study it and understand it and read it. And in fact, I was on the introduction of Stevenson's text just this morning, and I picked up something that maybe I'll share with you
Okay.
today.
Well, I think that right there is a little maybe lesson for all the people who are going to see this. Is here's Joe Strauss after all these years still reading Stevenson's textbook and still learning from it. And
Yeah,
so I myself, and I think most everyone else has a long way to go. Then we have a lot of work to do. So with that, I think what as we're talking about this, then we have to start with the major premise, universal intelligence. And one of the things I want to get your opinion on, which I think is very important, because I think, and again, I don't know, but I'm just assuming from what I see and what I observe in the profession, but I think one of the things that maybe holds some chiropractors back from really delving into the philosophy is there's this maybe religious connection or association with our major premise that there's a universal intelligence in all matter, continually uh, giving thing all properties and actions continually get. I just drew a total blank there, Joe. But you
okay.
know the major premise. Um,
Yeah,
and so anyway, with that, and I've been to seminars where I've heard chiropractors use universal intelligence and God as a synonymous. They're the same thing. That universal intelligence is in God. So my point is this: I think a chiropractor coming in at first and trying to get into the philosophy, when they hear that, they're like, "Whoa, what is this?" I didn't. It might turn them off. So my question for you is: are they the same? Are universal intelligence and God the same thing?
mm. I think I see them as different, and of course, I think we have to go back to even back further than the major premise, and which I think divides chiropractic into um, a, a a concept that we need to understand, and we need to convey that to the individual, and convey to them what chiropractic is not. In fact, and I think I'm going to. If my wife took away, oh, there, Stevens. Okay, I got it. Anyway, in his introduction, Stevenson says that there's certain the three phases of chiropractic study, he says in Article 19, which is on in the introduction. He says the three phases of study are the study of the immaterial, the study of the material, and the study of art. And I think that I see the immaterial as being divided into two categories: the natural and the supernatural. And if we go back to the definition of chiropractic just a couple pages before, in Stevenson, he says that the definition of chiropractic is a philosophy, science, and art of things natural, a system of adjusting the segments of the spinal column by hand only for the correction of the cause of dis-ease. And there's a lot in that definition right there that
Right.
we can spend quite a bit of time discussing, and it may be good for something in the future. But I think the key right there is in this first sentence is chiropractic is a philosophy, science, and art of things natural, semicolon, system of adjusting the segments of the spinal column. So we see that there are two concepts of the immaterial, and that's what he's talking about. That the study of the immaterial and the study of the material. The study
Right.
of the immaterial has two categories or two aspects of it. That would be the natural and the supernatural. And I think that if we can talk about the supernatural, then I think that we're moving into God. And just like if we're talking about uh, the material, then we could be talking about chiropractic, or because we do deal with matter. The spine is matter. Uh, at least it used to be when I was in school, and and medicine deals with matter too. So there's an overlap there, but we deal with the not the supernatural, because that's theology. So there's an overlap in theology or with a supernatural concept, and there's a new overlap, and there's a function of the immaterial with chiropractic. But chiropractic deals with the natural aspect of the immaterial rather than the supernatural aspect of the immaterial, which would be theology or religion. And so I think that's where we deal with, in the definition, we deal with this the material, the natural aspect of the immaterial. Now there's obviously supernatural things, some of which I don't even know about, and some of which I'm learning. But there's a supernatural aspect of the immaterial, and that's the field of religion, or that's the field of theology. And so when you look at that, and you look at if you talk about chiropractic and talk about the supernatural aspect of chiropractic being universal intelligence, and we've kind of confused the issue. We've stepped into the field of theology or the field of religion, and of course there's so many areas of that, and unfortunately BJ got involved in investigating those areas, and he traveled all around the world. One of his green books just talked about his travels around the world, where he discussed different religions, and I think that he kind of got a little confused by saying, even though he doesn't say in the principles, which I think is really, really great, he doesn't say that they are God, but he does say in Stevenson's he makes them synonymous, and I think that's kind of an area where he and I differ, in that, and in saying that God and universal intelligence are synonymous. I see them as different. Now, of course I have a limited view of God because I've been raised and grown up in a Judeo-Christian background, and so I see that, and I think that's what most of the chiropractors had in 1895 in the Midwestern United States. I think they still call it the Bible Belt, and I think that they had that viewpoint. So it was easy for him to say that to those people in that time. Things have changed since then, and there's a lot of different religions now that talk about God, and I don't know that that's really helpful to our objective and to our explanation. And
well, I think one of the things that you just read there that I've read before, and this is why we have to keep reading these things over and over again. I've read the definition there where Stevenson talks about as the study of all things natural. And I never put that two together, where you think about, he right there is saying that it's not the supernatural. He specifically chose the word study of things natural. And so we, as you said, we have that natural, obvious component of life in our body that's immaterial, but it is natural, and it's obvious, and it's self-apparent, and that we all have that. And that's what he's really speaking about there, and not the soul or spirit part of a person. He's talking about that biological life of a person when he says things natural.
I think it's interesting that he says things natural, and then he goes on to explain the natural aspect of an individual, where supernatural would be something else, and
the spirit or soul, or
right, and like I say, there are a lot of people who have supernatural ideas of what they do and what they can do and what's supernatural. I come to the Judeo-Christian aspect of it, and that Christian aspect sees the supernatural. interesting that that the only material aspect of the supernatural, or a material aspect of the supernatural, occurs in Christianity,
Right.
where we talk about the God Man,
Right.
meaning the person of Jesus Christ, and yet BJ tends to
Yeah.
negate that, or
Right.
reject that idea that Jesus Christ was totally God and totally man. So
Yeah.
he takes away the supernatural aspect of him, just kind of presents him as a good person, or
Right.
a great leader, and I think that that's where he steps out of the chiropractic philosophy of separating the two,
Right.
and try to
And I think that's important for chiropractors to realize. I think maybe, like I said before, a thing that might hold some chiropractors back is they think that if I'm going to practice this way, I've got to be a preacher in the office too. I have to, that somehow those things are connected, when you can be a devoted Christian and or not and still present this message. It isn't dependent on your faith. It's not dependent on what your religious beliefs might be, because as it's laid out there, it is meant to be a separate thing.
Yeah, I think that that we need to understand those things, and understand them in the right light, and that's what we're trying to do with
Hmm.
objective chiropractic, sticking to that objective, recognizing that it may be necessary for us to, if we get to the point of having to explain our personal beliefs, explain what they are, and whether you are a Christian, or of some religion, then you need to perhaps explain your 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 basis for it there. But I don't think we need to mix the two any
Right.
more than I feel like we need to mix chiropractic
Right.
and medicine
Right.
together. And I make, when people, I don't talk about medicine, but I will share my faith or my belief with people if I'm given the opportunity, and
Absolutely.
they question me. But I want to make sure that they know that that's not chiropractic.